Tiger Woods wins Mr. Olympia.
The GOAT, the actual GOAT. He gets on stage and it's just like, this ain't my special Parisian grass that I prefer. This is hardwood. I don't know how this is gonna go.
He's out there with a putter, nothing else.
Yeah, he's just like in board shorts with a putter or something. He's just like,
yeah, it's a pose, hits a putt. Hits a pose, hits a putt.
I'm actually trying to. He hits like a side chest and uses like the full body putter. It just like hits it in.
Yeah, yoink.
Right in the hole.
The
full
greatest
body putters.
crossover of all time.
Golf and bodybuilding is perfect. Or you get the opposite, where you get bodybuilders on the green just like in like posing trunks, just like setting absolute nukes down the fairway.
Well, I was gonna say a lot of bodybuilders that have tried to golf, they can't because you lose so much flexibility and mobility.
Yeah, it's all hips and legs. It's all that core strength. So it's a completely different like that's why like the best a lot of the best golfers out there will talk about like all they train is like legs basically. That's all that they really need. And your back too. It's a lot of back.
A lot of them are bean poles too. Like they're not big guys at all.
No, you don't need to be. I mean, it's like there's so many things out there that are like that. Like golfing's one of them. And back in the day, I had family that would play golf, and they would tell me like the most successful people in golf like were just very bottom heavy. And so like me being in it, like he's like, the bigger the chest you have, right, as like a man, like the harder it is to like really grip the club and swing. So it makes it more difficult the bigger you are as a dude.
Yeah, I mean your address is down there, so you have to like you're starting like this, and if your pecs are too big to squeeze together like that, it's very hard to swing.
Yeah, you'd have to spread out your shoulders somehow and swing it in a weird way. But you just gotta suck it all in. Just do a vacuum. Just suck in all your guts, just for one swing. Just to get like.
How often do you practice your vacuum? 18 holes a day.
Yeah, and I get about a triple bogey every hole. So good, like well over 100 times per day at the range. But
that's so silly.
Racing is also like that. Like people think that like because F1 cars are so hard to turn and shit, and all these different cars don't have power steering and stuff. Like F1 cars do, but like certain racing cars don't have power steering. And you'd think that they like be super strong, massive dudes, but they're not. It's just all forearm grip. That's all it is. They're all small dudes. They all train. Yeah, Max Verstappen. They all train like glutes and legs and stuff, so that they're bottom heavy. But their upper bodies are super skinny for a reason. They're all tall, skinny dudes, like relatively tall. Some of them are small dudes. Yuki Tsunoda is like a almost midget, but like, some of them are really tall. Some of them they're just all very skinny though, to keep that weight down.
It's also, I was gonna say it's the weight more than anything, because you want the less weight you carry, the less your car carries. So you really want to keep it down.
Yeah, they talked about that. Lewis Hamilton talked about that on a talk show. He said by the time he ends the race, he loses about 10 to 12 pounds of actual water weight because you're sweating so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, by the time you're at the end of the race, like the amount of weight that you've lost actually gains you about 1/10 of a second per lap or something like that, which adds up. It adds up quick.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even think of that. But isn't it? Well, maybe it's NASCAR. No, F1 does it, but they have those water cooled suits that you can wear to keep yourself cool while you drive.
Yeah, they got like special racing suits and stuff like that. NASCAR is also a different world too, because they're on a closed cockpit. So it's like it's a lot hotter in there. Not as much airflow. But I believe they do get like water and stuff like that. And I think there's like vents, like venting into their suit and stuff, because they pass out. I mean, they're in an enclosed space in a probably very hot track, right? So they pass out. Like Indy cars are like that. They have an open top to them, but like they have like this window that kind of comes up, so it blocks all the air that would hit them. But they have vents set up in order to vent, their suit and their helmet out so they don't get too hot. So you don't want to pass out while racing. F1's different though because everything is open. It's all open with the halo and all of that, so they get a lot more airflow. So they don't have to do anything like that. But yeah, it's just like what's ideal for the physical attributes of the racer, and in this case, golfer. It's not what people think it is. It's just
Speaking of
it's all legs.
Open pose.
Ew. Open, close, open.
But
we
yeah,
figured,
we were take a look at some of the Olympia winners, and then kind of go back. I mean, basically tell you guys where they are now. The newer ones not going to be that much different. Like Derek Lunsford is getting ready for the 2024 Mr. Olympia. Like that, nothing has changed there. Same with Hottie. Hottie's just training for next year's this year's Olympia. Like there's nothing to it. So it's more so as we go progressively further back, seeing what's up with these dudes. Kind of bridge that into a longevity conversation too, because there's going to be some people that are still with us, some people who are not still with us, and that really brings into the conversation like, hey, how can you achieve a high level of excellence while still making sure you're living, 30, 40, 50 years from now?
Yeah, and Olympia is a good place to start because it's the top of the top, and like they've all gone in so many different directions, like as far as like physically goes. So we got to take a look at it. What's funny seeing it too is like also the locations that they've had the Olympia, because they didn't really like settle anywhere besides New York for 65 through 1969. Here, let me share my screen so you guys can see it with me.
I was going to say, and then Vegas later on.
Yeah, so like there's like New York, from 1965 to 1969, or 70, that's when the Olympia started. So the first year that Arnold won was the last year was in New York, at least for a couple years. It was in Paris then, and then Essen, West Germany, and then moved to New York again, then to South Africa for a year for some reason, and then to Columbus for a bit. It was like 4 or 5 years. Looks like 4 years actually. And then from there, Sydney. Like, look at how many these are: Sydney, Columbus, London, Munich, New York, Brussels, Columbus, Gothenburg, Sweden, Los Angeles, Rimini, Italy, Chicago, Orlando, Helsinki, Finland, Atlanta, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Vegas.
Yeah,
Vegas from 99 to 2019 straight. Yeah,
20
about
years.
20 years. Did they ever have it in Vegas before? I don't think so, actually. They didn't have it in Vegas before, but about 20 years straight, and then Orlando for a couple of years, back to Las Vegas, back to Orlando. This year it should be in Vegas, I believe. So now what they're going to do every year is they're going to swap back and forth between Orlando and Vegas to capture more audience, because you're going to have people who, like, it'd be much easier for me to travel to Orlando over like literally like an hour-long flight versus traveling to Vegas, probably like a 5-hour flight. It'd be a lot cheaper for me to head down to Orlando. I would just probably drive that. That's probably like a 6-hour drive, 7-hour drive for me, something like that. So it's a lot easier to get down to Orlando than it is to get to Vegas for me. So that's the goal, is to make it easier for people to travel to these locations. And then people are upset, especially in the like other countries out there. They're like, oh, why does the U.S. get the Olympia? It's like, well, you understand that the governing body over the Olympia, the people who run it, is an American organization.
You also show me a country that can drive up the revenue that the United States does for a bodybuilding show. Not to say that there aren't one-offs, but consistent revenue. You show me another country that can do this.
Yeah, I mean, bodybuilding in the U.S. are synonymous. It's people come to the U.S. specifically for bodybuilding. I mean, there's very few people who are outliers. Like Dorian Yates is one of them. Dorian Yates is one of the guys who just never left England. He just always felt that England was where he needed to be to train. But most of them, like Arnold, like first thing he did when he could was move to the U.S. to bodybuild. Jay Cutler, even though he was in Massachusetts, he was in Holden, right? He was in Holden his whole life. The second he could at 19, he moved to a house in LA because LA is really the epicenter of bodybuilding. That's where, that Gold's Gym is, the mecca of bodybuilding, and all the biggest, organizations and all the biggest, media outlets and all that are based out of LA. So it's the place people go. Vegas is also getting bigger too now.
You could even say for Hadi, trying to get the visa for so long just to come over here to, compete, but also, spend considerable time training over here now too.
Yeah, a lot of them too. Like, people don't realize that a lot going into Olympia alone it's not like devastating because they lost, but it's also like all the time and effort, because a lot of them will move here for a few months to train and get ready, like actually do prep in the US. Not all of them, but a lot of them who don't live in the US will come here. I want to say, what's his name? That guy from the Netherlands that never won. He got close a few times. I'm forgetting his name. There's a guy from the Netherlands that I want to say moved here for a couple months out of the year in order to prep for big shows. But, they spend all this money, all this time getting ready for these shows and, away from their family. Like Brandon Curry is another one. He does the opposite, where he goes to Oxygen Gym in Kuwait during his bulking season for like 4 to 6 months a year, and trains there and leaves his family back here in the US. So
I think
there's a lot that goes into it.
I think that's been a bit of a shift though, like as of recent, because a lot of like, Arabic places, not to put it specific on Arabic, but they capitalize on a lot of, popular things, and they build like, we had the Live Tour, which is a subset of that whole region for golf at least, and then, you were bringing up, you said, I'm blanking on the name, Oxygen, the Oxygen Gym, yeah, and how it's like this top of the line type stuff to capitalize on that market. So it's like we had the golden era up to now, like the focus has come to the States and you're able to achieve greatness here in the States, but now it's like, all right, overseas has some decent options as well. We're kind of getting back there. But in terms of, the Olympia, that's the Olympia is never going overseas. I don't think so.
No, I mean they have like smaller Olympias and stuff like that. I'm sure like there's like the amateur Olympia, I think, that takes place in like Spain or something like that. I forget exactly where that takes place. But they have like other shows out there. But yeah, I mean it's not like I like even like look at C-Bomb, right? Like C-Bomb's a great example of this. He lived in Canada his whole life, got pro in Canada, was competing in the Olympia in Canada, but he decided to move down to Tampa to compete in the Olympia, like for Orlando. I think he moved to Tampa. I think it was Tampa, or something like that, somewhere in Florida. Moved down there to compete, get ready for the Olympia in Orlando for 2021, 21, and 23. I think he also did it for 22, but 22 was in Vegas. But he just decided to stay. Yeah, he just stayed. He just never left, which makes sense. I mean, if you've been to Florida, it's literally like paradise, depending on what part of Florida you're in. It's beautiful. I vacation there every year now with my wife's family, and we love it, and it's just beautiful. So why not? And also too, like I mean, not really Tampa necessarily, or Tampa, yes. So Tampa itself is a pretty big industry for fitness, and a lot of it ties to like the beach and like outdoor living and stuff like that, like the outdoor lifestyle. When you're on the beach all the time, you're out in the sun and all of that. Part of it is kind of like looking good, but I've seen a deterioration over time. I feel like last year when I was in Siesta Key, I thought I'd see like quite a few bodybuilders and stuff like that, and I didn't see like any, like not a single like relatively jacked dude at all, not a single one. It was just interesting.
Is that because you're walking around mogging on them and they just all
seemed
all inferior?
Scared. Yeah. Yep. They're all scared. They all ran away from me. They saw me and booked it. They said, "Nope, we're flying back home. Sorry, family. That dude's too mogged up." But yeah, it's interesting to see that that's the way the industry's going. But what's good is that most of the people we'll be reviewing today, not all, but most of them are still alive, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them, some of them passed away. Some of them, didn't survive that long after bodybuilding. Some of them, not really.
I was going to say, some of them that we're going to talk about are from so long ago, too, that they just die of old age, too.
Yeah, you can't really fight. Larry Scott, for instance, 1965 to 1966. He died in 2014 at the age of 75. He wasn't. That's like right smack dab on the like
average.
Yeah, that's like the life expectancy for the U.S. Like that's smack dab, like right on it. So he wasn't gonna, even if he didn't bodybuild, he could have died around that time period, anyways. But yeah, he started it, the Olympia, the first one to win. Larry Scott. People still mention his name here and there. It's not often, but you do hear about him.
I was going to say, we hear a lot more of Sergio, also because of how important he was to Arnold and, getting into the bodybuilding scene. So obviously that's the next one, but that we hear a lot more of him than, not to take anything away from Larry Scott, but this is definitely like when you think of the beginning of the Olympia, this is who you think of.
Yeah, so Sergio Oliva, born in 1941. That's fucking crazy. Died in Cuba, Guantanamo in Cuba, even Guantanamo Bay, the prison down there. Probably not actually there, but
probably not in Guantanamo Bay as a famous person.
Yeah, let me pull up another tab here. He was known as, well, his nickname was the Myth. It just pulled up fucking Wikipedia again automatically. Just damn it. There we go. Okay. So he was known as the Myth, right? So
yeah, that image, the video link image almost in the middle left of the screen where he's doing the right there. That's obviously highly detailed, highly contoured, but how in the world do you get those arms? That's wild.
Yeah, his arms are pretty crazy. With Sergio Oliva, a lot of people argue that like there's videos I've watched where people argue like the best bodybuilder of all time is Sergio Oliva. They're like there's probably been better bodybuilders like physically, but like for the time he took people's breath away. Like he would step out on stage and people like, what the fuck is that? Because they never saw that until like never saw this level of bodybuilding. This is also like he's not even like peak conditioning here, that's for sure.
I was gonna say too, like if you think about this has popped up on my pages a lot, but like bodybuilding from like the 20s and maybe even the 30s, like it's compared to now, it's just like regular physiques, and then you throw this dude out there, not even 20 years later.
Yeah, it's crazy like what this guy was able to achieve. It's there's some dudes that are just built for it. I know one guy off the top of my head, everything just fucking works for him. I've talked to him so many different times and I ask him like, how's this going, and it's always just perfect for him. Nothing ever, he doesn't gain acne, he doesn't lose hair, like everything he trains just puts on size, he always stays lean. Just some dudes are just built for it.
Gyno gets him, he doesn't get Gyno gets him.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Gyno says he's the problem that he needs to figure out. But like it's just some dudes it just works, and Sergio Oliva probably was just one of those guys where like no matter what he did, it just worked, which is fucking upsetting. It's upsetting.
Yeah.
There's things out there that are like that. There's people who are naturally gifted at things, and you just got to accept that. Hard work will beat talent, but at the same time, it's like if you put hard work with talent, they're unstoppable.
And even to add to that, we're talking about he was 66 to 67, something like that.
Let me pull it back up again. 67 to 69, so he won 3 times.
So think about how little they knew about anabolics and recovery and dieting, and to produce that physique competes today.
Oh yeah, it could definitely. You could probably go pro with this physique, especially this physique right here. Like this physique right here, you could probably go pro with that.
Absolutely.
Not the best conditioning, this isn't like he's not diced to the absolute gills. He's really lean.
And that was another thing that we have learned more about, and that's a bigger requirement now. Yeah, like that was probably peak lean back when he was bodybuilding.
Yeah, when we get into Arnold, you'll see like the quality of like the leanness of bodybuilders. But like, yeah, he just looked crazy. This is definitely like peak bulk. Like he's pretty buffed up right here.
Yeah.
Damn it, I wish I had that fucking fat distribution, dude. I
was gonna say his quads are like just trunks right there.
Yeah, it's crazy. But like here's him next to Arnold. I don't know when this photo was taken, but yeah, it's great. Like Sergio's legs are definitely a lot better, but he also has a son, Sergio Oliva Jr., who competes, or at least competed. Let me see where he's at now. I used to follow him pretty closely because I felt that he always had a lot of potential. As far as like what he's been up to, looks like he was training recently with Arnold's kid. Yeah, it doesn't look like he's still training. He's still doing everything a bodybuilder would do, but like he hasn't like stepped on stage in a while or anything like that. I think Sergio Oliva Jr. is one of the athletes out there, one of the bodybuilders out there that's like, what if, what could have happened if like he really decided to take it to where he was supposed to go, because he's got Sergio Oliva's genes in him, he's already got the genetics for it. I think he's just had some injuries and some setbacks and stuff like that just have like kind of hindered it. It's like if you keep getting small injuries here and there, you'll eventually just like you lose the experience on all of that.
Wear and tear.
Yeah, exactly. And you lose, you get less time on, in bodybuilding, it's time on stage, and like sports is like, less games, less practice.
Mm-hmm.
And if it just keeps happening back to back to back to back, you end up being out for so long, you're way behind, and that's the problem with bodybuilding. It's also a ticking time clock. You don't have forever to do it. That's with any sport, don't get me wrong. That's with any sport. A lot of sports you can keep doing for a while, but like very physically intense sports like football, basketball, soccer, stuff like that, you can't do too long. Bodybuilding is the same way. You can't do it too long. Your body just doesn't hold on to it as long as you'd want it to. So he's at the point now where he's probably like getting kind of on the older side and like past his peak, which is a damn shame. I think that Sergio Oliva probably could have won the Olympia if he really was given the tools to do so.
Yeah.
But with that being said, Sergio Oliva, let's see, who do we got next? Arnold. Do we even need to say anything about Arnold?
Yeah, he's got so many accolades, and talk about going from one end of the like career timeline to a complete different by becoming governor of California. Like that's just so like opposite of what, because generally speaking, when people take a look at not just bodybuilders but classifying everybody into gym rats, we think, or they think that we're some of the less intellectual beings, and to go from that, obviously we know that Arnold is one of the smartest gym goers of all time, but to go from that to then the political sphere where everything is scrutinized and you have to make major decisions that impact thousands of people, that's like true like two-way individuality.
Yeah, he did have a lot of ties to government, and like a lot of the things he gets into is like after he already has ties to it. So I'm not sure if he
caused himself a nosebleed.
I actually did recreate it. Okay. This is me. This right here on the screen, that's me. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
from 1970.
Yeah, I had to just flex so hard I popped my brain. But like, look,
You know,
can we at least, huh?
I was gonna say that's a legit thing, like doing like super heavy deadlift PRs that I've seen
Yeah,
people like get the bloodshot, nosebleed, everything.
yeah. Strongmen do it all the time
Yeah.
when they're deadlifting. They bleed out their nose all the time. It's just the norm. You know, they push so hard, their blood pressure goes up so high, they just bleed out their nose. It just spurts out. Like when
New
Eddie
mocks.
did the 500 kg deadlift, I think it was. Um, when Eddie Hall did that, Eddie's like nose just like fucking
Mm.
fire hose when he like got to the top. It was crazy. But like that also was like, this may not be the healthiest thing for your body. You know, it's like with bodybuilding, yeah, that's not healthy and all of that. Nosebleeds still happen just like anybody else, you know, any normal person. But like when you're lifting and the norm is like, yeah, I'm gonna get a nosebleed from this, like it's probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
It's probably not something that could last for forever. Um, but what I was gonna say was, can we just appreciate Arnold's insane, like easily
Oh,
probably the best biceps to ever grace the bodybuilding stage.
yeah.
Like you can't beat that peak. Like his peak, his bicep head is so fucking short. That peak that's like half his fucking forearm. Like people don't realize how big these motherfuckers are. Even Arnold back in his day, Arnold would be dwarfed by guys today. But like Arnold, even back then, like look at his bicep is like half his fucking forearm.
Yeah.
Like
Wild.
think about that. Like think about how much peak that really actually is.
That's
Like
a
that's fucking
baseball.
huge. Yeah, basically that's basically
That's a
what it is. It's
literal
probably like the
baseball.
size. Yeah, probably the size of an actual baseball, just on your arm. That's how big his bicep was. Fucking dude, there's nothing I wouldn't give to have genetics for bodybuilding, man. It's just such
Yeah.
a genetic sport. It sucks. But yeah. So Arnold was just built for it. So Arnold today, obviously, you guys know where he's at. You know, doing what he's always doing. You know, he's running the Olympia. So actually, Arnold, there was something that was said recently. I think it was like Arnold's goal is to get like the Open or something like that, like the Open winner to like $1 million or something. Like get it
Well,
up there. Let me see if I can find it. There was something I saw.
I mean, he's always wanted to bring not just more money, but more fame and notoriety to the sport.
Yeah. So let me see. I remember seeing it. I'm looking for it now. I don't see it. Um, but Mitchell Hooper. Oh, that's the strong man. Okay. Um, but I remember seeing like so. Okay, okay. So there's a video out there. This guy's talking about it. How basically, um, Arnold increases the prize to $500,000 for the Arnold Classic. Um, was it this year that he did that? Announced that 2025 Arnold Classic winner will receive a $500,000 prize money, $100,000 more than the Mr. Olympia. Granted, Mr. Olympia will still be like the title to win, regardless of money, but like with more money comes more competitors. With more competitors comes more esteem, and
Yep.
that's where like that's I think Arnold's plan. Like these organizations make so much fucking money. Like it's crazy how much money. Like because look at like local shows, right? Like here's my thing. So they're like, oh, it costs this much money to run the show, whatever. And then I'm like, okay, let's take into the amount of money that you're talking about here. So let's say the show, like I remember one time, like the Charlotte Pro or something like that, they were saying that it took 40 grand to uh to run, right? But
Mm.
I'm like, okay, let's say we're talking about an NPC show, not even a pro show, like an NPC show. It takes $125 or $130, $150, whatever, something about that ballpark to put in the show to actually compete per division. So if you wanted to do, like I did two divisions, I did two classes within my division. I did true novice and then also open, or my like division for men's physique. And then at my next show I did novice and my actual height division at the next show, right? So that's two.
Yeah.
So just for me to compete alone was about $250, $250 to $300. And then my family had to buy tickets. A full day ticket for prejudging and the show, I think is like, now it's like 45 or $50, right? So when we're talking about just me alone, probably about $500 roughly is what I brought to them. That's just me alone. And you have 80 people who do that, minimum, 80 people minimum, that covers the show, let alone anything else. You know, and the prize winnings are like fucking nothing. They're like a few $100. It's really nothing. Basically just pays for the show. But you know, like they make a ton of money from these. And then for like Arnold's show, like imagine how much you have to pay to compete in it if you do. I mean, I know the Olympia is like an invite only. I don't think you actually pay to compete in it. But like they bring in so much fucking money because it's an expo as well. It's a whole weekend thing.
The sponsorships too, like it's absurd.
They pay
like,
so much for that.
Think about how much, like, for example, shoot, now I'm blanking on it. More plates, more dates. Their whole thing. Gorilla, is that what it is?
Gorilla Mind, yeah.
Imagine how much Gorilla Mind pays to have a stand there. And obviously they make a ton of money from selling stuff there, but the amount that they pay just to be there.
Yeah, just a booth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know some shows do pay a lot for like guest posers and stuff like that. So there is that, and you know that does, you know, take a toll.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that at like the Olympia or the Arnold.
No. I like the pro shows though. Like some of them will have like the big Olympia competitors and stuff like that do like guest posing. And they cost a lot, like 10 to 15 grand and shit like that, which makes sense. I mean, you're asking for like basically, so like this is where like the inflated money kind of comes from, is like if you're asking someone to be somewhere for like a weekend, right? Like I want you to do guest posing Saturday and Sunday at the show. You take up a whole weekend of theirs. Yeah, mogging on them. You're taking up a whole weekend, right? But then when you're talking about like however many weekends you have in a year, which is 52, and everybody's trying to get you to guest pose, like your value goes up. You know, this is how you make more and more money. Not to mention when you're doing a prep, you're not a lot of these guys aren't trying to do guest posing while they're in prep. Also when they're competing on stage, you know, stuff like that. So like that's even less and less and less weekends. Not to mention their own business stuff going on. So it's like it costs so much money to get these guys out because they have such little time. So it's gonna be worth their while, right? But yeah, so Arnold, like it's good to see that he's introducing more money. I mean, even just like the classic physique. Let me look up like the actual winnings, but let me see here. And then we'll move on to the next guy. Let me see. Yeah, so like Wesley Visser's won 60 grand. So it's all based off of the division. So like men's physique only gets 10 grand, where men's physique at the Olympia gets 50 grand. But it's also depending on how much they bring in. So Heidi Chupin won 300 grand for this year's Arnold, 500 grand next year for the next year's Arnold. But Wesley Visser's won 60 grand. That's already 10 grand more than the Olympia. Yeah. You know, so he's, you know, they're making more and more money. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets, you know, the classic physique up to like 250 grand in not too long, you know, like that's a lot of money. And that's going to make people debate, like, do I want to focus on the Arnold or do I want to focus on the Olympia? Like, do I care more about being able to live off it or do I care more about becoming an Olympian?
And that also comes down to, obviously you can't have as big of a say with this depending on like your build and everything, but that's a big determining factor between classic physique and open as well, because open makes you know 4 or 5 times the amount that a classic is making. But when people think like the most aesthetically pleasing bodybuilder, they're thinking of classic physique dudes. So it's like, do you want to, because like for you and I, like a lot of us get into it because we want to like you know, both of us early on were doing it to get girls, and now it's just to put on our best physique. And for us, that's, you know, what is the most aesthetically pleasing, not what can I become as a science experiment, which is what open is.
Yeah, pretty much. It's that's the sad part about men's open, is that it is pretty much at this point like what kind of drugs makes the best physique. But
I'm a petri dish.
Basically, yeah, I'm just an actual experiment. But yeah, I mean, we'll see where it ends up going. This is the screen you guys are looking at. We'll see where it ends up going in what ends up happening in the future. But I think Arnold, the actual classic physique will take over. It's just when not a matter of if. It's a matter of when.
Because
and
like people, when you ask any random person, do you know a bodybuilder? 9 times out of 10, CBum is the name coming out, or depending on, like, maybe in Germany, they'd say Urs. Like, it's going to be the classic physique guy that they know.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously know the open dudes, but you can't rely on, the average consumer to know them, and the average consumer is who's buying the product. So you have to, like, they're making you the most money.
And think about it this way too, like the guys who are at the top right now competing in Olympia really like started heavily competing like 2020 or like a little earlier than that. So like we haven't even really seen the people who are like interested in like classic physique because of CBum or Urs or anything like that.
Yeah,
we're still waiting on that. It's still going to take a few more years. Yeah. So like by 2030 we'll start seeing guys like, oh, CBum is the reason I got into classic physique. And we'll see what that industry looks like, what that level of competition looks like. Because for CBum's day, there was nobody like CBum. It was just, there's some bigger guys, that were starting kind of classic physique, but not to his degree, they weren't insane, and CBum's popularity adds to it for sure.
Why we went towards a more open, like men's open area of bodybuilding. It's because back in the 70s when Arnold was winning, after he'd win, he'd go and do a shoot where he'd have 2 girls on his biceps. I haven't seen any of those anymore, so we're going down the open path because they're like, well, we're
pansies now.
We're not getting girls. Let's just take more drugs.
Yeah. Let's shrink my balls even more. Smaller balls, bigger dick.
Well, actually.
Well, no. But yeah, so actually 74, 75, Franco Columbu won lightweight. This is where they started doing like lightweight and heavyweight and then overalls.
Lightweight, baby.
Now they do like, there's kind of like the weight divisions roughly, but not nearly what it used to be. It used to be like lightweight, heavyweight, like it was a clear distinction. Now it's like 212 and then like open. That's pretty much it. But there's still like kind of the weight disparity. Like, so like I used to say like I wanted to compete in super heavyweight men's open. So like, that would be like you try to be as big as possible. Like I wanted to be like, if I could, I still would do it, but I'd want it to be like 300 pounds off season, like crazy heavy. Yeah. And that's like considered what's called super heavyweight, right? Like that's the division that you're in, or the class that you're in under men's open. But back in the day, they'd have 2 winners. They'd have lightweight and heavyweight. Now they have 212 and open, but they're not listed together like they are here. So lightweight, heavyweight. Franco Columbu unfortunately passed away not too long ago. He passed away in 2019. Franco Columbu was actually the
wild picture of him right there.
Yeah, it's an interesting picture. So Franco Columbu, let me type this in. I can see my keyboard. So, no, I didn't do it. I can't stand that. When it automatically populates the address bar. So Franco Columbu was the guy that like kept Arnold going. Arnold. Like this is the guy that like was pushing. You can have this.
Well, they were training partners too.
Yeah, like this is who he trained with. This is the guy who kept pushing him, stuff like that. So like
they were actually
this
business partners back in the day.
Yep. Yeah, and here's a good photo of that. A good photo of them together. They're always training together. So it's Franco versus Tom Platz. But yeah, so they're always training together and competing and all that together. I'll go back to the Wikipedia. So fortunately, he passed away. He was in various. He was a licensed chiropractor. Got into it in Cleveland, Ohio. I guess he had like little cameos in the Terminator and stuff.
Yeah, he had the acting roles because of Arnold.
Yeah, exactly.
It was literally this, like, if you and your best friend grew up and did similar things and then just happened to get, like, benefits because of what the other person was doing, that's what they were doing for each other.
Yeah, here's the films he was involved in. A lot of them are like playing himself, like Pumping Iron, like they're like documentaries. A lot of these are documentaries. But yeah, so that's where he's at now. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he was a big influence on Arnold. Then we got Chris Dickerson. Chris Dickerson, you'll hear sometimes come up. He obviously competed pretty heavily. There's a lot of shows that he did. So let me look up Chris Dickerson on Google so you can see what his physique looked like.
I was going to say, that show list, that was only like a 3 or 4 year show list, and it was just massive.
Yeah. So Chris Dickerson is brought up sometimes. To me, not the most appealing physique, but definitely up there. You know, he won the Olympia. You know, he's very, very good physique. This is not loading for some reason. It's very blurry. But
I'm not, on that picture right there, not a huge fan of how his tricep, I don't know, head doesn't extend all the way down. If you see what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean that's just how your triceps are. They're like when you're doing this kind of pose, like if you have short tricep heads, then they're gonna look a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd rather have short heads than long heads.
Mm-hmm.
But let me see where he's at. I'm not even sure where he's at.
He passed.
Let's see. Oh yeah, he did. He did pass away a few years ago. Yeah, it's too bad.
But the common denominator across the people we covered who have passed is that they were 70 and above, which is not.
Yeah, he's 82.
Yeah, which isn't as prevalent in today's bodybuilding. Like a lot of dudes are passing early on, and it's because of that science experiment style, mentality, especially with open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Some of them have passed away, which we'll go over soon. We'll just kind of start flowing through these guys. Samir Banut. Let me see what his physique looked like. Yeah, he had a really good physique back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
See, like I respect this physique a lot. This is a very nice physique. Except his obliques are just really fucking attached to his lats. His lats go fucking low. Wesley Visser's really high lats.
Yep, this is
Samir,
low.
very low lats. Yeah, this is what very low lats looks like. C-bomb, perfect. Right in between. But yeah, so this is Samir. Really good physique. It's just his lats were just really low. That's the only downside. All right, let's see what we got next. One more. There we go. Lee Haney. Lee Haney was the first one to win 8 Olympias. He's still around today. He's 64. He won from 19.
Is that a government picture right there?
President's Council. Yeah, on physical
council,
fitness
for sure.
and sports. Yeah. So not too many shows actually. 1984, he won the Olympia, and everything after that was just first, and then he retired after the 91 Olympia. Lee Haney had a phenomenal physique. So him and Ronnie are the only ones with 8 Olympias. Arnold has 7. Phil Heath has 7, but Ronnie and Lee are the only ones with 8.
Yeah.
That's not him. There we go. Yeah, this is like he dominated the 80s.
And he's also one of the big names that you can still hear about because of what he does now with, his impact on bodybuilding now, how I'm not sure if he coaches, but he certainly advises and gives fitness advice. I think he has a fitness brand where it's not necessarily for bodybuilding, but also just like overall fitness. And so he's still a name that you'll hear a lot of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'll hear Lee Haney be brought up from time to time. I think his downside was just like it depends on the pose, but I think it's just his downside was just his waist. But again, he won 8. I mean, you can't beat that. Like that's never been beaten. 8's been tied by Ronnie, but it's never been beaten.
Yeah.
So personally, he almost reminds me of like Samson Dauda a little bit with like the way his midsection looks.
Except Dauda's just a lot bigger because of being an open now, and yeah.
Yeah, Samson's a different level of size.
What I would like to see is if they both did like either front doubles or like just standing relaxed and just show them side to side. I would love to see how much thicker Samson is, just because how much more weight that open competitors now are carrying.
Yeah, it's crazy. I wonder. That's a good point. We got Dorian Yates, which we talked about. We did a whole
we covered
a whole episode about Dorian. He's into ayahuasca and tripping balls and all that shit now, and doing yoga with his asshole pointed at the sun and whatnot. But it's sunning his butt, his brown star, straight at the yellow star. So he's up there with the number of Olympias. He's number 6, or he's 6 Olympia wins, which I think puts him as number 5 in like the most, because there's Lee Haney and Ronnie. That's 1 and 2. They're both tied for 8. You got Phil Heath and Arnold tied for 7. So that's technically 3rd and 4th. And you got Dorian, who got 6. So he's technically, I think, 5th, but nobody's tied for 6. So he's definitely 5th at least. So that's Dorian. He's pretty healthy now. He's not huge or anything like that anymore as far as size goes, but he's up there.
And that's kind of a big point for people to understand too, is like these guys reach the greatest physiques of all time, and then you're not. Like, this is not a thing that you're carrying into your 60s or 70s. Like, you are done after, like, Ronnie was a little bit on the older side when he was winning, but like you're done at like 40. That's like just about when you're like max, obviously other than the masters divisions, but 40 is kind of like you need to hang it up.
Yeah. I mean, typically like 35 is where it starts to kind of go downhill. Usually like peak is like 28 to like 32. That's like peak.
Yeah.
Right. But like 35 is usually where it starts to go downhill. Some guys can hold on to it about 40, but like that's usually where it really starts to go down. Dexter Jackson's like really the only one that's like the exception. But yeah, Ronnie Coleman, we all know, plenty of documentaries. We talked about him plenty of times. A lot of injuries from like surgeries and shit, but he's arguably the GOAT. Personally, I don't think he's my favorite physique, but I will argue that he's probably one of the best, if not the best bodybuilder of all time.
He definitely exemplified what it meant to be a bodybuilder too, because he's one of the most humble people. His competitive side was not toxic. It was productive competitiveness, where like especially like between him and Jay Cutler, like pushing each other to be better, not pushing each other because like a lot of the time when you get a competitive edge, you're doing it because you feel like you need to, or you deserve to be better than that person. But those two, like, it was like you were competing to see what product you could push the other person to, not even push yourself to.
Yeah, they had a pretty healthy competition, really. The only ones who didn't have a healthy competition was Phil Heath and Kai Green. It was pretty toxic sometimes, but it's a good time with them. We got Jay Cutler, of course. You talked about Jay plenty. Jay's still huge. He could arguably compete still.
There's been a lot of rumors over the Masters division for him.
Yeah. There's been a lot of rumors, but I don't think he'll do it. But
I think he's comfortable. He's got his
happy
gym.
Where he's at.
He's got his brand. He's got his coaching. Like, I think he's very comfortable, and to pull someone out of that, because it's no joke. Even a Masters, you have to go through a prep. You have to do, and like that's such a commitment. And I think like he's just happy,
Yeah. I think he's accomplished enough. He's proved, his worth, and he was one of those guys who's just built for bodybuilding. My dad went to the same high school as him. Jay Cutler was 1 year ahead of him, I think, in high school.
Wow.
And like Jay was just fucking built for it. He's just always been huge. Jay was, he got into construction, and he just like at 18 was just fucking massive dude for no reason.
What's wild is reading that his first heroes, and then it says Sylvester Stallone. I love that.
Yep. Jean-Claude Van Damme, interesting choice as well. And then Sylvester Stallone, who's never a bodybuilder, but he went to Quinn Sig.
Stallone was
which is cool.
Big in the fitness world.
Yeah, for sure. Just not bodybuilding necessarily. Yeah. But he went to Quinn State Community College. He started training at 18, but he moved to LA not too long after that. He had a house that he rented with like 5 other bodybuilders or some shit. In 1992, Gold's Gym, Worcester Bodybuilding Championships. Interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. But Yeah, so he's good now. Business, he's got Cutler Nutrition or whatever, Cutler Supplements, all that. Runs the Cutler Classic and in various locations, one of the better like pro qualifiers. Not pro qualifiers, sorry, national qualifiers. So you want to keep nationally, that's a good one. Dexter Jackson. So Dexter Jackson is the exception I mentioned earlier. He stopped competing when he was like 50, I think. He did 20 Olympias. He's done the most amount of Olympias of everybody. Yeah, he did it from, I want to say 2000 to 2020. 2020 was his last show. He's competed professionally since 1999. Okay, so his Olympia debut was in 1999. So it was 20 Olympias, I guess. I remember the number was 20. Look at that.
Look at that
Holy
list.
Shit. That is insane.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I would just count the years.
17. Yeah, so it would be, so it's one more. So technically it's 21, actually. Unless he didn't compete 1 year. Oh, he didn't compete in 2019. There it is. That's why he did 20. Yeah, he didn't do 2019. There is no Mr. Olympia right here. Oh, yes, there is. Never mind.
Yeah.
Right there. Huh, weird. Okay. But yeah, I guess he did 21 then. Mr. Olympias, unless there's no 2005.
Obviously.
There it is. There's no Mr. Olympia in 2005.
Obviously, you have, if you win, you get the invite back. But to consist for 20 straight years, get an invite to the Olympia, that just doesn't make sense. That's like, I don't have a comparable reference to make here.
Yeah, and he looked like he did 2019 the Tampa Pro in order to qualify for the Olympia, and he got 4th. Like he just needed like 1 or 2 shows in order to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Dexter Jackson for you. We got Phil Heath. Phil Heath is still pretty big now. He's sponsored by Panada now, I think. Which is who we talked about last week.
I was gonna say that he came up in the pictures for Pinata last week.
Yeah, Panada. Pop at the boopy, Panada. But yeah, he competed 3rd. He got 3rd at the 2020 Mr. Olympia. But he's won 7 firsts. So he's competed in a lot of them. And he's also placed really high. So like he's one of the best bodybuilders out there too, because he if you look at he got second, 3rd, he got pretty close to getting 8, and even better than that, he could have gotten 9. And there's a lot of years where people have said Phil he should get back into it, 2021, 2022. People were saying you should keep going.
Yeah,
but he doesn't want to keep going. He's kind of at the where he's comfortable, like Jay.
Yeah.
So he lives in Denver, I think, Colorado. Travels pretty frequently for stuff. He competed lifted at a gym I wanted to lift at when I lived in Colorado for a couple months. I wanted to lift there so fucking bad, but everything was shut down. So I think the gym was only open to a couple of the big guys, including Phil. But it's also a bitch to train at that high altitude. You can't fucking breathe.
Yeah. Your lungs get a workout just walking to the gym.
Oh, it's crazy, dude. It's your breathing. It's, you get used to it. It's not that big of a deal. You just have to breathe more. That's really all it is. You're walking, you start deep breathing because you just feel like you can't get any oxygen. It's like wearing a mask almost. Like a face, an actual Halloween mask or something. It just feels like you can't get any oxygen, even though you are, So you have to breathe more. You have to breathe harder. But you get used to it. And then now we got Sean. The last one I think we should really talk about is Sean Roden, because unfortunately he did pass away early. This is an example of a bodybuilder who passed away probably because of bodybuilding. He died age of 46 in 2021. That was a huge hit. Losing Sean Roden was a huge hit to bodybuilding. I remember people were talking about that for weeks.
We're still talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. And he's one of the bodybuilders that people feel that he has one of the best physiques of all time. He could have been one of the best. Yeah. And it just got cut short. Granted, he was 46 when he passed away. He won the Olympia when he was 43, 44, something like that. So he was kind of at the end of his cycle there. Like he was kind of at the end of his competing world anyways. And then there's all that controversy. It mentions it right here where he was accused of sexually assaulting and of someone in October 2018. And I want to say that was actually like, so he won in 2018, I guess. This is what this is saying. He was formally charged in the state of Utah for rape, object rape, and sexual abuse. But there was something else involving it. Yeah, he was banned from competing in 2019 Mr. Olympia contest because of that.
Yeah.
Right. But there was more to it too. Like it was like I remember, because I wasn't super into bodybuilding at the time, but I remember reading about it afterwards. Like there was more to it than just like cut and dry. Like this is what he did. It was a lot of accusations and a lot of like
things that got nullified.
Remember, like, yeah, like a lot of shit that was like this we could prove you didn't do, or like this you can't prove you did, but this we can. But it's also like if they were saying this was happened and this happened, but only some of it actually happened, then like what is actually the truth?
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit involved with it. I can't really speak too much on it. I just remember there's a lot of controversy. But and him not being able to compete in the 2019 Mr. Olympia contest too was huge controversy because it's like the point is the physique, the point is the body, you know,
and if there's not an actual like indictment, then you're taking a political stance by not including someone.
He was charged with it. Like he was actually charged with it. But it's like yeah, I get why they wouldn't want him competing in it, but at the same time, it's like it's tough because it's like I get it, but also we're talking about physiques here. We're not talking about these people as people. We're not voting based off their mental aptitude or anything like that. But I also get why they don't want him representing the Olympia by winning, being like, oh, he just got charged with rape, and now he wins the Olympia and gets all this money and shit and gets rewarded. You know, it's like it's a tough situation.
Yeah.
So I get that they took the cautious approach and just said we don't want you to compete, but he ended up passing away anyways in 2021, not be able to win again. And as far as why he died, I want to say that there was rumors that he died from a heart attack, but there was rumors that it was because of drug abuse and stuff like that,
which generally goes hand in hand when someone dies when they're like in their bodybuilding routine.
I mean, especially a heart attack, like that's pretty much up there. Like that's one of the main reasons a bodybuilder will die is because of a heart attack.
Yeah.
It's because of plaque buildup. You get plaque inside your arteries from taking gear, and it shrinks the amount of actual blood flow you can get, and eventually you just have a heart attack. Your heart can't function properly anymore, and it just stops beating, and you just die. So it's pretty common. But yeah, so this is kind of where they're all at now. Everybody else, Brandon Curry, Big Ramy,
they're still around.
They all compete and everything. Brandon Curry, as far as when he's gonna win again, if he ever does, not sure, because he's the only one that's like might retire soon. You know, might be done pretty soon. Big Ramy, he's probably got a couple more years in him, and then he'll probably be done. But Hadi and Derek are probably going to go until he can't. Derek's pretty young. Hadi's 35, so
I'd be willing to bet we'd see like another, not that they'd get this win total, but Ronnie versus Cutler type feel between the two of those guys. Between Hadi and Derek.
Yeah. Sorry, it took me a second to understand what you're saying. Yeah. The competition, for sure. But yeah, Derek didn't compete at the Arnold, so Hadi ended up winning the 2024 Arnold instead of Derek. So that's good for him. He came back and got it, and then Hadi got the Arnold in the Europe version as well. So UK Arnold. But yeah, so this is where we're at now as far as the Olympic competitors go. But thankfully, most of them didn't pass away. And on top of that, most of them didn't pass away for bodybuilding. So it just goes to show that like you can be a bodybuilder at the top level and not kill yourself, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So good to see that. But we appreciate you guys listening. We'll call it a day at that. We'll be back with another episode next week. So appreciate you guys listening. Watch us on YouTube, subscribe, like us, all that. Fans, we love doing this.
If you don't go to YouTube, you don't see us flex.
On Spotify, technically. On Spotify.
Yeah, your nose starts bleeding again.
Worth it for this pump.